Bryullov, a bridge between classicism and Romanticism. Karl Pavlovich Bryullov, also spelled Bryullov, Russian, was one of the most celebrated painters of 19th century Russia. Born on December 12, 1799, in St. Petersburg, Bryullov rose to fame for his ability to blend the precise formalism of neoclassicism with the emotional depth and dramatic flair of Romanticism. Often hailed as the first Russian painter to gain international acclaim, Bryullov's life and work marked a turning point in Russian art, setting the stage for the flourishing of the national school in the later 19th century. Early life and education. Karl Bryullov was born into a family of artists of French descent. His father, Pavel Bryullov, was an engraver and art teacher, and Karl grew up in an environment that emphasized artistic discipline and classical training. From an early age, he displayed exceptional talent. At just 9 years old, he was enrolled in the Imperial Academy of Arts in St. Petersburg, where he studied from 1809 to 1821. While at the academy, Bryullov was trained in the neoclassical tradition that dominated Russian art at the time. He mastered the academic techniques of drawing, anatomy, and historical composition, and graduated with a gold medal. However, he never felt fully at home within the rigid confines of neoclassicism, longing instead for more expressive and emotionally charged forms of artistic expression. Journey to Italy and breakthrough. In 1822, Bryullov traveled to Italy as part of a fellowship awarded by the Academy. The move proved transformative. In Rome, Naples, and Pompeii, he immersed himself in the works of Renaissance masters and contemporary Romantic painters. Italy's rich artistic heritage and ancient ruins deeply influenced his style, broadening his vision beyond academic conventions. It was in Italy that Bryullov began working on his most famous masterpiece, The Last Day of Pompeii, 1830 to 1833. The monumental canvas, inspired by the archaeological discoveries of Pompeii and the writings of Pliny the Younger, depicted the cataclysmic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. The painting blended historical accuracy with high emotional drama, vivid color, and theatrical composition, traits emblematic of Romanticism. When The Last Day of Pompeii was exhibited in Milan and later in Paris, it garnered international acclaim. European critics compared Bryullov to great masters such as Rubens and Van Dyck. The success of the painting marked a significant moment. For the first time, a Russian artist had achieved international recognition, not just as a student or follower of Western traditions, but as an innovator in his own right. Returned to Russia and teaching career. Following his triumph in Europe, Bryullov returned to Russia in 1836 and was welcomed as a national hero. He was appointed professor at the Imperial Academy of Arts in St. Petersburg and became a central figure in Russian cultural life. Though known for grand historical scenes, Bryullov also excelled in portraiture. His portraits were celebrated for their psychological insight, dynamic composition, and technical finesse. Among his most famous portrait works are depictions of Russian aristocracy, intellectuals, and artists, such as Portrait of Countess Yulia Samoilova, retiring from a ball, and Portrait of the Shishmarev sisters. These works showed Bryullov's talent for capturing not only the physical likeness of his subjects, but also their inner lives, a hallmark of Romantic portraiture. Bryullov also influenced a generation of younger Russian artists, helping to loosen the grip of neoclassicism on academic training, and opening the door to more personal, emotionally driven art. He mentored painters like Alexander Ivanov, and was admired by contemporaries such as Alexander Pushkin and Nikolai Gogol. Later life and legacy. Despite his fame and success, Bryullov's health began to decline in the 1840s. He suffered from chronic illnesses, possibly linked to overwork and the harsh climate of St. Petersburg. In search of better health, he left Russia in 1849 and settled in Madeira and later in Italy, where he continued to paint, though at a slower pace. He died on June 11, 1852, in Rome, and was buried at the Cimitero Cattolico, non-Catholic cemetery, where many prominent foreign artists and intellectuals were laid to rest. His grave remains a site of pilgrimage for admirers of his work. Artistic significance. Karl Bryullov occupies a pivotal position in Russian art history, often considered a transitional figure between classicism and Romanticism. His work reflected both the academic rigor of the former and the emotional intensity of the latter. The Last Day of Pompeii remains one of the most iconic works in Russian painting, a masterful synthesis of narrative, emotion, and technique. Moreover, Bryullov's success abroad helped validate Russian art on the international stage, inspiring later generations of Russian painters, from the Perebizniki Wanderers movement to great realists like Ilya Repin, to assert their own creative voices. His emphasis on emotional expression, individuality, and dramatic storytelling left an enduring legacy in the evolution of Russian and European